Hello and welcome to episode 101 of the Entrepreneurial... I just did that. Should we keep it, Lance?
The Entrepreneurial Brass Junkie. In fact, what we want to convey to you is that one of the ways you can be entrepreneurial is to combine two ideas into a new idea.
The Entrepreneurial Junkies. I'm joined today by my co-host David Childs. David, how are you?
Great.
That was not a good Welsh accent. Anyway, this is... I'm your host, Andrew Hitz. I don't even know which podcast this is, but this is how we roll. We like to keep things honest. This is the... Lance is here, so either Lance is a guest on TEM or this is the Brass Junkies. This is actually the Brass Junkies. Hello and welcome to episode 101 of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by... Euphonium player is not quite as good as David Childs, but he does a pretty good job of trying. Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you today?
I'm just so honored to be on your show today. I don't know how to describe it.
Oh, man. Maybe I can claim the Patreon money for this episode for myself. Is that cool?
Sure. I haven't changed the account number or anything.
Oh, Lance, how are you today? Like, really, how are you?
I couldn't be any better.
I've announced the wrong podcast. I've insulted you. You'd think it was midnight. It's like 9:30 in the morning. I'm wide awake.
This is the problem. When we do these at midnight, you're on and I'm off. We do them in the morning. No problem. I'm good.
And we're both busy during the day. So, yep, there is that. So, all right, we've got a cool one for you today. This is a Listener's Choice edition, but it is the Intern edition of Listener's Choice, which I think is going to be pretty cool. We currently have 6 interns at Pedal Note Media, and they are some phenomenally talented people. And we are going to hear a question from each of them that they recorded, and then we are going to offer like crazy hot takes that are going to be insightful and inspiring, and yeah, just wonderful. Isn't that right, Lance? Is that the plan?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, a huge thank you to everybody who reached out to us about episode 100, that Sam Palafian interview. I can't tell you how many people, as we sit here now, this was released 3 days ago, and even in the first 24 hours, I got multiple messages, including from some people that I haven't talked to in a long time, talking about how they were in tears, about how inspiring it was, about how it was just life-changing, was actually used in multiple messages. If you, for some reason, are listening to my voice right now and have not heard episode 100, I beg you to go back and to listen to that. So, also wanted to thank everyone who has gone to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. There's an awful lot of bonus content that we are now pumping out for the various $1, $3, $5, and $10 per episode levels, and yeah, I think we got some really cool stuff there. So go check that out, and thank you to everyone who's left a rating or a review on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts or whichever app you use to listen to the Brass Junkies. It really helps us to be found by other people, so we really appreciate that very much. Without further ado, Lance, let's get to the questions. The first question is from Drake.
Hey guys, my name is Drake Domang, and I'm a tuba player currently based out of Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I work freelancing and building custom French horns for Patterson Hornworks. I've heard a lot of differing opinions on doubling, and am interested in what you all have to say on the matter. I've learned quickly over my short career as a tuba player that the best way to make a living playing tuba is really by playing bass guitar and trombone. I do a lot of sub work with the orchestras in the area, but most of the playing I do is Latin, funk, and pop in nature. And as satisfying as playing in an orchestra can be, making people dance can be way more fun than watching a stuffy crowd be confused about when to clap. I can begin to understand the logic behind not wanting to half-ass anything, especially playing an instrument. But the people I play with don't seem to mind at all that I'm not an artist-level bass or trombone player, and I sure don't mind bringing in a few extra $100 a month. So what are your thoughts? Should low brass players, especially tuba and euphonium players, learn a secondary instrument? Should it be a requirement?
Hey, Drake, great question. The problem with your question is the should, because it's dependent on too many things to have a one-size-fits-all. I think in your instance, it makes perfect sense. And I think some of it comes down to personal interest. Some of it comes down to personal ability and how much time you have to devote to developing skills on another instrument, as well as the resources to buy a whole bucket of instruments. And then the other thing that is a factor is what are the factors in your geographic environment, like musically in your area. Is there if there's not enough work for you to make it only as a tuba player, you could move, or you can broaden your skill set. So I think the notion of broadening your skill set is fantastic, and I would say that broadening your skill set is a requirement, and that could mean picking up, you're a tuba player and you pick up the bass. That is one way that you could broaden your skill set. You're a tuba player and you become the best booker in town. That's a different skill set. That's I guess you could think of it broadly as a form of doubling, but it's not doubling on another instrument. So I think that is that part of it. Now let me go down the doubling side just for a second and say that every time I've picked up a second instrument, I've gotten better at my first instrument. So by practicing the trombone, it forced me to kind of reevaluate the things that I did well on the euphonium and try and apply those things. So my growth as a musician went up. Additionally, as dorky as it is, the time that I've spent playing the guitar poorly and the ukulele less poorly, all of that has made me better as a euphonium player, or just a musician in general, because it's forced me to think about things like time, pitch, melody, practice, concentration in ways that I had not thought about it before. So when I come back to my to the mothership, then I'm coming back from a more informed place. So I hope that helps.
That was a surprisingly insightful answer.
I'm telling you, mornings.
But we usually record in the morning, and you're not usually articulate, so there's something else going on. What'd you eat for breakfast?
No breakfast, just coffee.
Well, that's my speed. Anyway, which is not how you're supposed to do it, kids. So stay in school, don't do drugs, and eat breakfast. I think those are the...
Get a haircut.
And get a haircut. Really interesting about how it makes you dial in your primary instrument. It makes perfect sense. I just wouldn't have thought of that. I guess my only question, actually, to turn this around for Drake is, what is an artist-level trombone player? I just don't even know what the hell that is.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I sat on that for 2 minutes. Every once in a while, a line is just barely good enough. Not that was amazing, but just barely good enough that even the comedic timing can be off, and it'll still get a chuckle, and that was one of those. So, all right. Next question is from Cody.
Hey, Andrew and Lance. I'm Cody Messersmith, Intermediate Music Specialist in the Dallastown Area School District in York, Pennsylvania. I freelance as a tubist and have done work on the side for instrument repair companies as well as Parker mouthpieces. My short-term goals include going back to school to pursue a degree or degrees in tuba performance. I feel that I've worn a lot of hats in my short career, and the one that seems to bring me the most joy is when the horn is on my face, either playing or teaching. I'd also love to speak to groups of students about the opportunities that they have in school and immediately after college. Being a young person in this field can be and sometimes is intimidating, and I want to help lessen that intimidation for my peers. I've written a presentation that talks about just that, and it's geared towards college students and young professionals. I'd love to present it, but I'm not sure how to go about that. Overall, I feel like I'm constantly building, but I don't always know where my destination is or should be. How do I find it? I just want to play tuba and, as Lance would say, live indoors and eat food. Thanks so much, guys.
Hey, Cody. So what I would tell you is that you need to do this presentation somewhere. That doesn't seem like it's helpful information because, that's kind of what I'm asking about. The thing is, there's no way that you're going to be able to charge, say, what Lance would charge to come in and give a presentation at university the first time or even the seventh time. So what you need to do is find somebody, like maybe the leader at Parker Mouthpieces there, who offers fine customizable... Wait, no, that's later. Sorry. You hit up Michael Parker, your former teacher, and ask him if you could come into one of his schools and give that presentation for free. Maybe get a video of it. Get some social proof, meaning that you get some quotes from the students, get some quotes from Michael about how it went, and then kind of create a little bit of a digital paper trail, as I like to call it. And then people, when you are pitching them, can see that you've done this idea. They see what the students said. They see what the person who hired you said. And at that point, you can start to maybe ask for a little bit of scratch. It's a much bigger favor to ask somebody to have you in for something that you've never done, especially when you're asking for money, when you don't have a track record of being great at giving presentations. So my direct advice to you would be to get some social proof. And this reminds me, actually, that the page that we set up when we solicited interns for back over the summer for this year of Petaluma Media is that we, right at the top of that page, we have a quote from Buddy Deschler, who is one of the trumpets in Dallas Brass, and he's a former intern of ours. And right at the top, there's a quote from him saying how beneficial being an intern for Petaluma Media has been for his career. And so you can read that quote. That was the first thing that you read if you went to that page. And so if you were, obviously you had some interest if you were going to that page to begin with, but the fact that you saw directly how it had benefited somebody that came before you, there's a whole lot of science behind the fact that then makes you definitely keep reading further. And at that point, we're leaning in when someone that we feel is like us is already talking about having consumed the presentation, the product, the whatever, and that it went really well.
The only thing I would add, I think that's exactly right, and I'm glad you brought up Buddy. Because I think Buddy has done a great job of that. In fact, he's going to become. He hit me up. Hey, could I come do this presentation at CMU? And I was like, I would love to have you. I have no money. And he's like, I don't care. And so he's figured out a way to make that happen financially for himself with some sponsorships and some other things. But he's not letting that slow him down. And the other piece, just little quick piece of advice I would give you is to document everything. So I'm going to do this free gig. I'm not getting anything out of it. Yes, you are. If you throw up a video camera and you throw up a quality audio mic, you're going to have one recorded that you can turn it into press materials. You can pull out some quotes of the things that you said and turn them into social media stuff. You can ask some of the kids or the teachers or the presenters, hey, would you mind filling out a little short questionnaire? I'm putting my press kit together, and if you just share your thoughts with me because I want to get better at this. And now all of a sudden that quote-unquote free gig pays you back in many, many, many ways.
You can turn that into an ebook that you can either give away to increase a mailing list subscriptions. You could sell it. You can just have it as a product available. You can make blog posts. You can riff off of quotes from that for Instagram live chats. There's a lot of things that you can do. And you can't say every 3 minutes on Instagram Live like, here's a quote from my presentation, but you mention that it's from your presentation and then you go. And if what you're saying is really good stuff, it's going to get traction, period. So now, a word from one of our sponsors, which, of course, I do not have the copy up because I am an absolute mess this morning. But Parker Mouthpieces. Let's see if I can do this off the top of my head, Lance.
Mm-hmm.
Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com.
What about my mouthpiece?
Or I'm reading off of the TEM one. I pulled it up, but it was too fast. Or the Lance LaDuke Not Artist Model Euphonium mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com. Or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I haven't mentioned this in a while, and I think I usually have. Maybe I've only mentioned this on TEM, but actually Parker Mouthpieces does a really good job of using social media. If you want to check out a good example of a company, which is a very small company, doing a great job on social media, then I would encourage you to go check out what they've got going on. All right, next up is Armando.
What's up, Brass Junkies? My name is Armando Alicandu, and I live in South Florida, where I play the trombone and euphonium. As I finish my final year at Palm Beach Atlantic University, I look towards the future and wonder what I'll do with all this extra time I'll have on my hands. During gigging season, I find myself playing with brass quintets for a one rehearsal and gig, and then we disperse, like, see you next year. I would like to form a chamber group that consistently rehearses and performs for community outreach events, as well as gigs for cash. Some of the challenges I've faced while trying to establish and maintain a chamber group are finding the right people to work with as far as being available and motivated, and finding venues to perform, both free and for profit. I have a brass quintet in mind because of the available rep, but maybe there are other combinations of brass instruments that might be easier to coordinate. How would you recommend I tackle these issues in the process of forming a chamber group?
All right, Armando. So you've heard us prattle on about my normal first question is why a brass quintet, but you sort of have answered that. And the other thing that we most frequently say is to start with the who, and I will sort of gently pick it up there. We've talked about it a lot in other venues, but start with if you can find even one other person that shares a vision with you or a work ethic or is a match for you musically, then you like working with that person. That will make some things easier. But you don't have to worry about finding a set group. My advice to you is to look, it's sort of similar to the earlier advice, which is to look at the market that you're in right now and see what that market could use. It doesn't exist now, but it is a thing that you think could fly. Either that, or what is the thing you are super passionate about as a genre or as a target or as a composer or as a style of music. And here's a tangible, specific version of that I've tried to get groups to adopt a number of times, and they have yet to do so. And I think it's a goldmine personally. And that is to become let's say for the sake of argument, you are going to be a brass quintet. Be a brass quintet that would be the brass quintet for any Comic-Con related event. So you specialize in music for nerds. It's like all of the video game music, all of the superhero music, all of the kitschy TV show themes. Like you just go deep, like it's the Doctor Who, like what movies, what TV shows, what video games have that music that the people who are crazy for that music are really crazy for that music. And so I have a strong suspicion that you're not going to be competing with 10 other groups of any kind, let alone brass groups, to try and land any and all of the gigs that that constituency hangs out for. So you're looking at a blue ocean. You have an opportunity to go in there and sort of become, hey, if you think about Comic-Con, you're booking some kind of a nerd event and you need music, we're that group. And then you've carved out a place in people's minds. You become that thing, and then all the rest of that stuff I think will fall into place. Once you start having success, then people are going to be like, "Hey man, can I be in your group? Oh, I'd like to. I'll put up flyers." People will have time if you start having success and you chart a course. We're going in this direction, and we're not going to make any apologies for it. Here's another quick one, which is an idea I've thrown out for a group that almost took me up on it because I think it's a solid idea as well, which is you are a quintet, but you are a calendar quintet. And you put together books that specialize in whatever events are coming up. So you build on the momentum that you have at the holidays because everybody wants holiday brass. And then you transform yourself into the romance brass quintet and you gear up for Valentine's Day. And we're going to do, musical telegram things that are all love or romance based, and then you just do that for 2 months, and then you shut down and you become this Irish quintet that's going to specialize in Celtic and Irish music for St. Patrick's Day. Then you've got your normal Easter gigs, go into Cinco de Mayo, hit the summer season any way you want, or take the summer off, but you could do a bunch of patriotic stuff that will carry you over the summer. And then you get into the fall. It could be a back to school thing. It could be a Halloween thing. Then you move into Thanksgiving, and then bang, you're back into the holidays. You could sprinkle in other in between those areas. I mean, you could put in, classics of brass or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. But if you target these things that are happening every calendar year, then you've got, if you have a book, a romance book, a patriotic book, a St. Patrick's Day book, a Cinco de Mayo book, an Easter book, and a Christmas book, you got yourself a whole bunch of work. So those are two specific, tangible ways you could go live indoors and eat food playing your horn.
Look at you providing value again.
I'm telling you.
Gee whiz. Man.
It's that second cup of coffee.
There you go. That was really, really great advice. I would say that the problem with trying to form a brass quintet is, well, there's a few of them. To quote the great Canadian poet Bryan Adams from the summer of '69, Jimmy quit, Joey got married. We should have known we wouldn't get far. everybody is generally in different places in their life, in their career. Opportunities come up. It's very hard to get 5 people who all have the same availability, the same level of interest, and the same commitment to moving things forward. And that's almost always a point of contention, is because you've got 10 hours a week to put in, and that you, not that you have it, but that you want to put in 10 hours, and then someone else wants to be involved, but they're more, whether they realize it or not, they're more looking to spend like maybe an hour a week on this. And then somebody else is so busy that they would love to spend 5 hours a week, and they'll tell you that they will because they think they can, but they can't because they're too busy with family or whatever. I like what Lance just said was, he didn't connect these dots, but yeah, if you're the boss of this thing and you're the one steering the ship, I think that that's really good. And if you have ideas as good as what Lance just said, yeah, people will be contacting you about that. So that's I think I hate to say it, but I think what Lance said was really sound advice. So
wait, what?
Yes. Next up is Dominic.
Hey everyone, my name is Dominic Viviano, and I'm a second-year master's student at the University of Central Arkansas, where I study trombone performance. I serve as a studio graduate assistant, which allows me to teach undergraduate applied lessons for non-majors, as well as assist with our 2 trombone choirs. My primary career goal is to be a college trombone professor. My question for the Brass Junkies is this: could you outline the process from writing and updating your CV through the actual interview and audition process for securing a college teaching job? I know that there are unique elements for every position, but a general overview of your experiences would be great. Details about the actual day, from showing up to what you ate, how you dressed, would be helpful as well. Also, what advice would you give this next generation of applied professors coming into the field?
Thank you, Dominic. I am going to briefly answer the actual question that you asked, and then Lance is going to answer a better question. So Lance has improved your question, Dominic. No, it's just a really important addendum to this answer. So I just served on a search committee at Shenandoah Conservatory, where we just hired Mary Bowden, actually, is the new professor of trumpet at Shenandoah, which we are very, very, very excited about. She's a former guest on the Brass Junkies, and she's a rock star, and we are very lucky to have her. But I can speak to this because I just had to I had the privilege of, I had to read like 85 CVs and cover letters. The first thing, and this is the exact same thing that when I talk on TEM about grant writing, I'm on the board of directors of a charity. It's called the Mockingbird Foundation. If you're looking to make an end-of-the-year donation that's tax-deductible, goes to music education. We've given out $1.3 million, a little bit over that, to music education. It's unbelievable organization. The stuff that we do it's great. So it's mbird.org. We will put a link to that in the show notes. We also take donations in January, but December tends to be a time when people really like to do that. So anyway, I cannot tell you how many grant proposals I have read or how many cover letters I've read that were obviously cut and pasted and that were not directly written to the school that they were applying to or to the charity that they were applying to. Do not, for the love of God, do that. You have to put what is, and this is also has to do with the order of your CV. If a school, for an applied faculty position, not a lot do, but if a school says that they are looking for someone who is entrepreneurial and you've got some entrepreneurial experience in your background, do not bury that. If you are applying to a very conservative, just meaning like traditional, not conservative, a traditional school that is looking for traditional performance and teaching opportunities, don't put the entrepreneurial stuff at the top because that's not what's going to impress them. I'm not saying to leave it off, but the order, you need to put what they're going to be impressed by, not what you or I or anybody else is going to be impressed by. You also need to use words that they're going to want to be hearing. You need to spend 10 minutes, like literally 10 minutes, Googling who the director of this or the dean of the School of Music is, a little bit about the history of the School of Music, and don't pander. Don't obviously, don't drop little nuggets that prove that you've done your 10 minutes of research. But for the love of God, do not just cut and paste. You should not have a cover letter for every job application, or there might be a reason why you're not getting out of the first round. That's the hardest part, by the way, is getting from 80 to like the list of, I think we interviewed 10 people for the semifinals, and which means that 70, and we had like many more than 10 people who had DMAs from super fancy schools. That is not enough to get it done. And in terms of everything else, I mean, in terms of the interview, be yourself. That's really important, because you have two options. This is just like going on a date. You have two options. You can either act like the person across the dinner table from you, like you think that they're going to want you to act, so that you can get a second date. And then you've got, then you either have to keep acting like this other strange person who's not you for the duration of that relationship, which is not fun, or you are suddenly going to start acting like yourself at some point, and they're going to be like, who the hell is this human? So this is not the person who took me to dinner at fill in the blank. So, and that's the same thing with the job interview. You have to be yourself. Don't just cater to what you think that the person or the people on the search committee want to hear. You need to be yourself. In terms of what you wear, I personally think that your clothes, this goes for juries, this goes for job interviews, it goes for everything. Your clothes should not even cross the mind of the candidates, which means that you should not be wearing sneakers and blue jeans ever. You should also not be wearing tails or a prom dress. So you should just look professional, and that should be the end of that. And I guess the only other piece of advice that I would give you, which comes from anybody who's been through this, is that the job interview never stops the entire time that you are on campus. Like the entire time you are on campus, at lunch, at dinner, in between, casually talking to people on the search committee before or after your recital. And those of us on the search committee are not trying to trick you into saying something that you shouldn't. We're not, but all of it kind of leads to, and this is like getting to know a human that's under stress, which is good, because there are times in, say, faculty meetings where sometimes tensions can get a little bit high. So just always know that you are always on the clock until you literally say goodbye to the last person, and that's the last time you close your hotel room door. You're on the clock. So, Lance, why don't you offer an answer to a different but related question?
How do you get a full-time college teaching job? There's two paths, and one is the one that is implied in the question, not implied, stated in your question, and answered beautifully and succinctly by our very own host of the Entrepreneurial Brass Junkie, Andrew by golly Hitz. My advice is to not be normal, and that is the career that I have built for myself. And one of my spirit animals, Seth Godin, would tell you to quit waiting to be picked. And so you're talking about a universe in which you are waiting to be picked. And I have and encourage folks to build your own path. And you heard me talk about that in terms of the quintets. And I think that it works just as well, and has worked for me. I basically built my own gig from the ground up. There is no job description for the job that I have at Carnegie Mellon right now. It does not exist. And so what I did is I got really good at a variety of things, and then I put myself out there, and then I found a toehold into a place, and as the euphonium instructor, and then I asked myself, what other value can I provide this institution? And so then, hey, would you be interested if I ran a brass choir or a tuba euphonium ensemble or a brass methods class or a music entrepreneurship or a whatever or a whatever or a whatever? And one of two things will happen. Probably. Well, one of three. One, they say no, and you go, great. And then in the meantime, you're looking for another school that will give you an opportunity to grow into a different thing. Two, they will say yes, and then you grow this once small job into a bigger job. And then you may hit a ceiling there at which there's just no opportunity for you to grow beyond that. And then if that's enough, great. congratulations, you win. If not, now you've built out your resume in such a way that you have this whole set of things that you can say, I am currently the teacher of these things.
Yep.
And I see your posting, and or here's this other school, and you approach the school and say, I'm doing this. I know you don't have a position right now. Here's the stuff I'm interested in. I noticed that you don't have someone who does these things. Is there a reason for that? Could I talk with somebody about that? I think that there are some opportunities here. Maybe we can figure out a way to X, Y, Z. And so you sort of you grow it from the ground up. And the advantage to that is that you tailor. I have tailor-made a gig for myself. There's a little bit of euphonium teaching. There's some tuba ensemble stuff. There's business classes. There's swing for the fence, cool, weird technological stuff at Carnegie Mellon. And I'm the freshman advisor. So I'm like face-to-face with students, helping them do what we're doing right now. And so that doesn't exist. You can't go to the College Music Society job postings page and find that combination of things. It's not there. You won't find it. And when I leave, they won't create one that's like this. They'll figure out, based on who we have and what we're looking for and what our needs are, what is that thing. So
they won't do that if they're doing it right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because this is aligned with your skills, and the next person is going to do a lot of stuff better than you, and a lot of stuff not as well as you. That's life.
Yeah, it's a little scarier. I mean, it's much easier to just I would say it's simpler to see an application. A posting, and then you submit an application, and then you cross your fingers and hope. I like living indoors and eating food, so I'm going to keep hustling. And if one of those things pops up, I might throw my name at it, and I might not. But what I know is, like Andrew said, 85 people are going to go do that thing. I was not competing against anybody for the gig that I have and built right now. It's the blue ocean thing again. So
It's the best way to win a
advice.
race, be the only person running. That's the only
Yeah.
races I've ever won. My 4-year-old, I'm faster than, but yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, and also, sorry, the last thing I wanted to say is that I've taught at a few, I won't name which one, but one of my former schools, I tried to expand my role and gave them what I thought was a very thoughtful proposal, and they said, this is awesome, we'll be in touch. And then they literally never even emailed me after that meeting, like never even emailed acknowledging like anything. And then at some point, you just realize that like that's never turning into what you want to. So I left. I did not slam the tent flap behind me. There was zero burned bridges or bad juju or hurt feelings or anything. I just left. And what do you know? I got hired at Shenandoah. And no joke, my second week there, and it's not because I did such a great job my first week, it's just this is when it came, they approached me about expanding my role beyond just tuba, euphonium, applied lessons, and I'm already doing that. So,
well, and if you hadn't done the thinking required to make those proposals to School A, then you wouldn't have been able to answer the question when School B asked it.
Yep, you are correct.
And the other thing is, things change at universities, and administrators at this place could go to another place, and then the flute professor that you were friends with when you were doing the whatever, they go to this other school and they go, who you want is so and so.
Yeah,
they're on the inside and they're looking for you at that point.
That's a very good point, Lance. Lance, why don't you tell the beautiful people about Duquesne University? Although they do accept non-beautiful people applications too. That's
true. So for any of you, no matter what you look like, you should go in the show notes and clink. You'll physically click, but I want you to make the sound clink when you push the button. Clink, the button that will take you to the page that was created especially for our listeners, showing you all of the goings-on going on at the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So there's fantastic things happening, a tremendous crew of brass professors, including James Gourlay and Algirdas Matonos. They're the two newest, so they're affiliated with River City Brass. All the rest of the brass faculty are members of the Pittsburgh By Golly Symphony. So if you want to find out, go there, clink on that button. And very, very, very special thanks to Jim. I don't have time for a snappy nickname, Nova.
Jim doesn't have time either. All right, thank you for that. And now we're going to hear from Simon.
Hi everyone, this is Simon Leno. I'm currently a sophomore studying tuba performance at Carnegie Mellon University, which means that I'm one of Lance's many lackeys at that school. So more and more now, I've been thinking of myself working in a teaching capacity as a musician, because despite the fact that I'm getting a performance degree, I believe that everyone needs some sort of teaching acumen in order to remotely make it in this business. So my question basically is for you guys. What was the best advice someone gave you in regards to how to teach effectively, efficiently, and without, giving the student too much criticism? Thanks.
I don't know that I have been given direct advice. I don't know that everyone's ever sat me down and said, son, what you need to do is. But what I have learned, and the advice I would give you, is to teach the student in front of you.
Those are the exact words that I was going to use after.
Really?
Yeah, exact words. Yes.
You have to listen. You have to be there with the person. I know that the most success I have had has to do with being aware of what the student needs, learning their learning skills. Learning their learning style, I should say, so that I know how to approach trying to help them with an issue, and just keep iterating that same thing. Anytime I've tried to adhere to it's the second week of semester, we should be doing X, then that doesn't take into account the fact that this person just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. It doesn't take into account that they injured themselves. It doesn't take into account they hate the etude that I've assigned and the next one they really like. So if you're not aware of those things, then you miss a lot. You're not teaching at that point. You're just sort of pontificating. It's a two-way street.
Yep. When I was in graduate school, my first year of graduate school, I was still dating my girlfriend from Northwestern, and she came down to visit, and it didn't really go how I'd hoped because she dumped me. So that was not ideal. It's worked out quite well for both of us, though, since we both have happy families. But I was like an absolute wreck. I was just a wreck. And Sam Palafian, who I had a lesson. I also had a couple of lessons as the TA that I needed to teach. And Sam took one look at me, and he'd known me for a long time, and so he didn't need to really ask, and he said, Hitz, go home. He said, just go home. He's like, and it was like in a very loving way. It was just like, you're not learning anything today. Mm-hmm. Just like, go take care of yourself as a human, And he's an adult. He's been around. In a vacuum, he'd love to be like, dude, it's your college girlfriend. It's fine. Like, everything's going to be fine. This is not even that big of a deal. But in the moment, it was the biggest deal I'd ever dealt with in my life. So he sent me home. He said, I'll cover your lessons. And then that was it. So it's like, it's not even just teach the student in front of you, which is exactly how I phrase it too. But it's like whatever version of that human is in front of you as well. And then I guess the only other thing is that I've been big recently on getting my students to get on record with exactly what their goals are. That can be career-wise, life-wise, and then even like technique and operating the tuba or euphonium wise. And then I get them to take note, and through self-awareness, which is one hell of a drug, to figure out exactly what their actions are and make sure that there is as much overlap on the Venn diagram as possible between where they're trying to get to and the actions that they are actively taking today to move things forward. So, but yeah, teach the student in front of you. Anybody who's applying for college, beware of any teacher who says that every single student is going to go through an embouchure change when they get, because these teachers still exist. Like of course I talk about the embouchure when it needs talking about. I talk about it when it needs talking about a lot. I talk about it a lot, right? Sometimes you have to build the thing. But like anybody who just says, yeah, this is how things are done here, that I would encourage you to run screaming from that studio as soon as that lesson is over. I just do not think that that's the way to go. Mm-hmm. Even if that approach works for 90%, what if you're the 10% that it's not ideal for? And then you're still making this like possibly $250,000 investment. It's like, don't do that. Yeah, do not do that. So, all right. Our last question is from Abby.
Hello everyone, my name is Abby Lannon, and I'm a euphonium player who's currently studying to get her master's degree in euphonium performance at Carnegie Mellon with Lance LaDuke. I also run the Instagram and YouTube page for Goofy Youth. My short-term goals include getting a second master's degree in arts management, and my question for the Junkies has something related to that. How hard is it to find a playing or performing outlet for someone whose goal isn't to end up with a top playing position? I personally have no interest in pursuing military band positions or similar jobs where my day-to-day job is only performing on my instrument. However, I want to keep playing and keep getting better. What are some suggestions that you guys might have for a musician like me?
Thank you for that, Abby. This is going to sound repetitive because I'm about to repeat something that Lance said earlier in one of his answers, but the word find is the problem here. How hard is it to find a playing or performing outlet for someone whose goal isn't to end up with a top playing position? It's actually very hard to find those in some ways, at least ones that you can monetize, that your goal is not to just become to be able to play Pineapple Paul faster than Mark Jenkins can. Good luck with that, by the way. He's lightning fast. But love you, Mark. So no, the thing is that you need to create the playing and performing outlets, and especially with someone who is as insanely creative as Abby is. That is exactly what you need to be doing, Abby. Is you need to create playing and performing outlets through whether that's finding or creating new venues, new chamber options. You need to find people to collaborate with once or twice or 9 times. You need to kind of take the bull by the horns here and just create stuff. And guess what? Some of it is not going to go all that well. And not that it's going to be horrible, but some of it's going to be like, yeah, both you and the other person you collaborate with, or just you and the audience will say, yeah, that was good. And then something else is going to get like crazy traction because it's going to like change lives and it's going to really make an impact. And then the cool thing about working for yourself, it turns out that if you work for the United States Air Force Band, as Lance did, and this is not, and this sounds like this is this like backhanded, like slight, this is not at all, but there is a structure there. It's the same thing with working for IBM, right? You don't get to say like, you don't get to raise your hand and say, I really enjoyed that work by Granger. We need to play more Granger. And they go like, who are you? So that doesn't, it's, and I'm not saying that there aren't opportunities to be heard there and there are committees and there are avenues. But in general, this is not just some like, let's raise your hand, let's talk it through, and then let's collaborate and figure out the program together. When you work for yourself, you get to figure out all of that stuff, and you can start to, you can create, Abby's got a lot of different interests. And the stuff that you're learning in arts management is all stuff that it's all principles that you can apply towards this. But I would stop looking, let me rephrase that. I would not stop trying to find playing and performing outlets. You should do that. Simultaneously, you should also be looking to create playing and performing outlets that are going to let you get your creative energies out through the euphonium or through some other instrument that you start playing. And that stuff is all going to feed itself. Creativity gets momentum. Lack of creativity gets momentum. And so just keep on making stuff, and the stuff you make is going to be better however you define that metric.
What kind of music do you want to make? My stepson he's not going to go into music. He's got a guitar. It's actually a guitar that I owned that wasn't using. And he goes up and he just dinks around on the guitar and he plays music that's interesting to him. And we in the world of classically trained musicians feel like, well, there's a whole lot of recreation of music. We take a piece that was written by a person and then we try and do the thing that they said. So if you stop thinking of yourself as a recreator of music and you think of yourself like this amateur guitar player or somebody who's picking up the drum set or the piano, or there's a lesson to be learned from the aspirational amateur musician, which is they just play the music that is important to them and that they care about. So what music like lights your fire? What is the kind of music that a goofy youth would play? Right. And so then you just build this whole niche instead of worrying about which repertoire would be appropriate for me to perform. It's like, that's the wrong question. Yeah. What music gets you up in the morning and causes you to want to go play your instrument? Doesn't matter if it hasn't been written or if it's improvised or if it's jazz or it's in the wrong. I made a freaking record of music that should never, ever be done on the euphonium.
Fact.
There's a set of Irish pieces. There's a set of Armenian pieces. There's a set of tangos. There's none of this you're supposed to be able to do on the euphonium. But I did it just because I dug that music. I didn't want to make a record. I did not want to make a long play. of tunes that we're supposed to play. That's just completely uninteresting to me. So find the music that lights your fire and play that.
Yes, that's it. That is it. You made a weird euphonium record that has spoken to a lot of people, and I guarantee you there are people who wish that you had just recorded pantomime, or or some other piece that I've heard many, many, many times. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to hear the great euphonium players in the world play the standard solo literature. There is something wrong if you don't have an interest in recording that and then recording it because you feel like the world feels like you should. The word should. Yeah. Lance already talked about it. Always, if you're in the practice room and it's not going as well as you think it should be going, well, welcome to reality. It's going how well it's going. And sometimes we focus too much on one data point, and if you look at the overall art graph, you're progressing exactly how you should. But the word should just, abandon it. Abandon it at all costs. And, just be creative. That's it's almost like we all on some level I think need permission to be creative, right? I know that's one thing you do as freshman advisor at Carnegie Mellon is just like overtly give people permission to pursue their crazy ideas
and be you. Be as genuinely you as possible. And Abby is a creative, talented person, and I know that she has music that she's interested in. So Abby, just go play that music that speaks to you.
Yes. I think that's going to do it, Lance. We got some good questions.
Who knew?
Our interns aren't necessarily all that bright, so I was pleasantly surprised by their insightful.
You think they'll listen to this episode?
I maybe, and they'll probably share it with their families. So I wanted to make sure that I insulted all of their children, at the very end. So yeah.
Sorry, Adrian.
No, they've been awesome. We've
been a game changer.
Yep.
Actually, just to take a minute to talk about this, we have our first crew of interns in this format. We've had interns in the past. Clink.
In terms
of talking of the interns. This new model,
frustratingly
where a crew of them, has been a great experiment and learning opportunity for us and hopefully for them. And it's really helping move the needle in a lot of ways. So this is a public thanks to all 6 of you wonderful folks. We look forward to the next batch of them who will be coming up in January of 2019. And we're going to, of course, be thanking them elsewhere as well. But here's a public thanks to y'all.
Well, and hold on a second. You're about to get married.
Who is?
You.
I know. 3 weeks from today, I will be getting hitched. And then 3 weeks and 1 day from today, I will be getting on a plane and going to Cancun to go. I'm not telling you where, because I know our fans will just hop on a plane and come find me there. So, yeah.
Your fiance is beautiful. She's funny. She's smart. She has options. I'm still pinging her, just reminding her that she does have options.
Yeah,
it's not too late.
I got over being concerned or alarmed at how many people keep saying that to her.
Ignorance is bliss, Lance. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. So I'm super proud of the fact that episode 100, which is blowing up, that I don't know if you remember this, but we started the entire episode by making fun of the fact that you're divorced.
Yep.
Which I think I said right on there. It's like makes every human listening uncomfortable except for you and me. So
that's it. Yeah. We softened them up so when the crying hit, they were already kind of in this state of mind.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I was just, no joke, while we were just recording this, my phone kept on lighting up from more messages from people about Facebook messages and emails. I had to flip my phone over, which I usually do anyway, but yeah, it's...
Well, maybe I'll have to put Facebook on, and is it still facebook.com?
It is. Yes, it's a great website. Nothing bad ever happens there. So it's totally, and the leadership there totally on the up and up. Yeah, they're great. So
yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of great guests coming up. Actually, we've got a renowned jazz trombonist, and we've got one of the best horn players in the world that are coming up next. If you tune in to the behind-the-scenes report for December, then you are going to hear all about our upcoming guests. Again, you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn about all of our bonus content, including the bonus episodes. If you missed the bonus episode with Sam, so these episodes come out every other week, and then the following week, there's always a bonus episode. The bonus episode with Sam, there's actually more crying. So at which point I actually yell at you and Sam because you're both crying. It gets real serious again, and then we return to our usual jackassery for bonus episodes. So, but it's like it's intense. So you can get access to all of the back bonus episodes for as little as $1 per episode. So go ahead to patreon.com for that. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.